name is Asha Sampath and welcome to this new edition of Business Africa, your magazine dedicated to the continent's business and economic news. As usual, you can win $150 in our Business Africa game. More details later, but first, today's top stories. We head for Douala and its new Grand Mall, a new giant hypermarket that has recently emerged from the ground, a sweeping trend across Africa. The people who come feel clearly valued, unlike other places they have been to before, which made the excitement very strong. Tents to accommodate families and guests in Togo spotlight on a flourishing business.
The appâtâmes were made using branches from the palm tree or the coconut tree. Later, they were made using calico, percale or even printed fabrics. Now we use tarpaulin.
Protection of patents, trademarks and the fight against counterfeiting. This is the mission of the African Intellectual Property Organization.
In 80% of cases, they discover intellectual copyright when there is a dispute over counterfeit goods.
Douala, the great economic metropolis of Cameroon, opened the largest shopping center in the region a few months ago. This development is part of a general trend. Several countries on the continent such as Egypt, Kenya, Morocco, Nigeria and Djibouti have already chosen to adopt these multi-store department stores located in giant shopping malls. The concept appeals to both consumers and businesses. It constitutes a real asset for the coastal metropolis of Cameroon. Our correspondent Abubakar Munchili went there to measure this enthusiasm. Take a look.
Douala, Cameroon's main economic centre. A short distance from the international airport stands the imposing Douala Grand Mall. This gigantic commercial space is home to both national and international companies and brands. All types of products are on offer, sometimes at prices within everyone's reach. And there are also services and opportunities, enough to meet the demand of a population constantly looking for convenience and novelty.
Frankly, I was surprised that there was everything when I see how much I paid for excess travel because I was thinking that I have to buy this and buy that. Yet here at Carrefour, I found everything. I sometimes even find things here at even slighter, lower prices.
The centre's officials say nearly 10,000 customers and visitors parade through here every day, attracted by the mall, which offers something for everyone from shopping to entertainment and leisure.
The people who come feel clearly valued, unlike other places they have been to before, which made the excitement very strong.
This is a nice center. It's having nearly everything that you need out there. When you enter here, you can get everything you need in your house, in your office, and elsewhere. I'm happy. The place is nice. It has really come at the right time to serve Cameroonians.
There are 160 stores and boutiques, a large underground car park, a multiplex with 5 cinemas, a supermarket, banking facilities, telephone services, insurance, pharmacies, the list goes on. Spread over a surface of 18,500 square meters, the Douala Grand Mall is the largest shopping centre in Central Africa. There is enough space for every imaginable kind of business, and there's plenty to tempt customers, with a particular emphasis on the Made in Cameroon label.
Here we're proposing Made in Cameroon because the objective is to promote Cameroonian products. We want to tell our foreign friends that Cameroonians can make beautiful things. For example, shoes like this are made in Cameroon. All the material we use is made in Cameroon. There are some that are hand-woven.
The hyper-commercial infrastructure, which, according to its managers, expects to generate some 4,500 direct and indirect jobs, will not just benefit the local population, but also the various companies that have set up shop here, and will also be instrumental in the development of the city, in particular here in Douala's 3rd district, the site of the mall. It modernizes urbanization a bit. It modernizes the lives of the people.
de ces populations, parce que vous savez que l'implantation d'une surface.
Because, you know, setting up a large mall like this was usually aimed at the better off part of the population.
Une catégorie de population
The very well off, in fact.
Très aisée, mais aujourd'hui,
but today we realize everyone can find something in these stores. We are really satisfied because it redirects demand. In other words, in terms of traffic, we had to go to Aqua to be able to make these kind of purchases.
On sait que fallait aller à Aqua, fallait aller pour avoir faire ce genre d'achat.
And today people can come here to our area to shop.
Pour se ravitailler.
With an occupancy rate of already more than 70%, just a few months after its official opening in December 2020, it marks the first phase of a vast and ambitious project. The ultimate aim is to provide a huge boost to the city of Douala, Cameroon the country, and the entire sub-region itself.
This is the first phase, the Douala Grand Mall. Phase 2 will follow. The Douala Business Park, which will therefore be like a destination today for Cameroonians first, but of course also for Central Africa.
An investment of just under the equivalent of $150 million was raised, including more than $90 million for the initial phase. The result of a partnership between Actis, a British investment fund, and local company Craft Contractors. It's a substantial outlay, but the mall is expected to be a financial success as it meets the public's ever-increasing demands and expectations.
On the maintenance on the mall, we've got a planned schedule, maintenance plan that is being scheduled daily, weekly, monthly and approved. So I've got highly qualified technicians that work in the mall, and we hire every day to the schedule, and we keep it up to keep the mall up to our standard.
And the Douala Mall won't be the only one in the country. Work has already begun on a mall in Yaoundé, the nation's capital. Its opening will add to the list of major shopping centres on the African continent, to the delight of both shoppers and retailers, national and international. In recent years, there has been a rush to develop large retail outlets in Africa, an indication the continent has plenty of commercial opportunities. As proof, a recent survey showed the number of shopping centres in Africa had doubled in the 7 years between 2011 and 2018.
When will the African Medicines Agency see the light of day? As the COVID-19 pandemic continues to gain ground, Rwandan President Paul Kagame is calling for the process to be accelerated. The African Medicines Agency was indeed created in 2019, but to date, only 8 countries out of the 18 signatories have ratified the treaty. Not yet enough to put in place this institution that would streamline the approval of drug circulation in Africa and put a stop to counterfeiting. Losses for African airlines are expected to reach $11 billion for the past year alone. Faced with the situation, several states on the continent have pledged to pay millions of dollars in subsidies to avoid serial bankruptcies. The carrier Egypt Air has decided to take advantage of the upcoming recovery to prepare for African expansion through joint ventures. The airline has just created a new company in Accra, Air Ghana, and is in talks for a collaboration with Sudan Airways. We now take you to Togo for our second report. In Lomé, the appâtâmes or marquee shelters, these large removable tents, have flourished everywhere in recent years. They are installed during official ceremonies such as political meetings but also funerals. It's a good deal for private companies that have entered this very profitable market. Jean Agbotse has the story.
In Togo, as elsewhere in Africa, funerals require a wide range of services, one of them being the hire of appâtâmes, vast tents put up to cater for all kinds of events. It's the weekend in Lomé. This street is the scene of intense activity. This is where the funeral services take place under the appâtâmes. Once they were shelters used in villages. They were made with locally available materials such as wicker, straw, and branches.
We can trace the origin of the appâtâmes to the structures found in what are known as the appâtâmes in the Ewe language. The colonialists called it the village square. They were the setting for the funerals, tam-tam sessions, meetings between families, and even public trials. The appâtâmes were made using branches from the palm tree or the coconut tree. Later, they were made using calico and percale or even printed fabrics. Now we use tarpaulin.
The appâtâmes you find in today's towns and villages have a modern touch. They are used for every imaginable event, including official ceremonies, political meetings, socio-cultural events, celebration, and mourning. In short, they are an industry in their own right, run by the private sector.
The
appâtâmes weren't as popular before, but now we get orders from all over for funerals, and even for celebrations such as birthdays and weddings.
A tarpaulin appâtâme will cost around $45. Some suppliers can make as much as $1,700 to $2,200 a week in this highly lucrative sector. In the past, appâtâmes were made exclusively by the council-run Technical Services Department.
Les services techniques de la ville ont commencé par ériger les appâtâmes il y a...
The town's technical services first started setting up these appâtâmes whenever there were official celebrations.
Des fêtes officielles. Pour ces différentes manifestations, les lieux indiqués.
These events would take place either in the street or in areas where there were no buildings. The appâtâmes were for temporary use and were as easy to set up as they were to dismantle.
C'est facile pour le montage, c'est également facile pour le démontage.
It wasn't long before the private sector realized that there was money to be made. There are now 100 or so officially recognized companies. Business is booming and jobs are being created.
Quand ça marche bien, on utilise plus de 50 personnes.
When business is good, we employ more than 50 people. We have people specialized in setting up the appâtâmes.
Des gens qui sont là pour les chaises.
People bringing in the chairs and making sure they all come back undamaged at the end of the day.
Les surveiller et de les contrôler au moment du retour pour voir s'il n'y en a pas de cassés.
Most people are delighted to see the appâtâmes set up in their neighborhood. The tents are a blessing as the streets are cleaned and potholes filled in with fine sand.
I think it's a good thing whenever the appâtâmes are set up in the streets. Once the funeral is over and they are taken down, the streets are nice and clean.
There are those, however, who complain that the tents block the streets. Once they are taken down, the tents tend to leave holes in the street. The council, fully aware of the problem, insists that appâtâme constructors respect the rules and seek authorization for any event taking place on public streets.
Generally, these events take place in the street and sometimes on major roads.
Et donc, sur certaines voies importantes, la mairie ne saurait garder
The council cannot stand by and do nothing if traffic is disturbed. That's why they have to have official authorization, that is then sent to the police, who check to make sure there are no objections in the area concerned. Once that is done, the council gives its final go-ahead.
C'est à l'issue de cette enquête que le maire donne l'autorisation.
But it is also worth noting that problems could be avoided if the administration took proper care of the parks and administrative premises.
Il faudrait que dans les nouveaux quartiers qui naissent,
in newly developed areas, it is important to leave these reserved spaces alone. In the past, there were 3 or 4 such areas available. There was Freo Square, which is still there now, and there was Van Vollen Square over by Air Afrique. If it had all been given proper thought, there would still be space for people to carry out their funeral services.
tous les habitants du quartier auraient autorisation à aller faire les funérailles.
Meanwhile, the appâtâmes come and go in the streets of Lomé, and like them or not, they are undeniably a source of revenue and a contribution to the fight against youth unemployment.
Welcome back to the second part of our show. Let's now come back to the situation in Senegal. The country sparked concerns last month with violent clashes in several cities after the arrest of a political opponent. Calm has now returned, but does the current context reassure investors? To answer this question, I've been joined from Dakar by Mustafa Sow, founder and president of the Pan-African Investment Bank, SF Capital. Hello, Mustafa Sow, and thank you for joining me on Business Africa. What is your analysis of the economic and financial situation in Senegal following the recent unrest?
Obviously, there is always this infamous question, why, when we have a riot here for 2 or 3 days in Senegal, well, it impacts the ratings. While in the United States, the Capitol was attacked, and it doesn't have any impact. So these questions often arise, but unfortunately, that's Africa. I think it's a deplorable situation, but one which in the end I think will be corrected, because the risk analysis is obviously done over time. Historically speaking, Senegal has always been considered a stable country. And indeed, recent events have obviously raised concerns with investors. I hope these doubts will soon disappear to allow investors to have the same confidence that they had before in Senegal.
Do you feel that this confidence has waned?
Listen, at our firm, we're working with many investors, both construction companies and banks, clearly foreign, and with whom these past 3-4 months, and even during the riots, we've continued our discussions. We've made good progress without these questions arising. But we can't say today the result is that investors have decided to look elsewhere or put their investment decisions on hold. Because that's not what we see today, if we compare it to transactions we started before the crisis and with which we are currently working. Take today. We had a call from a British investor, and it wasn't an issue at all. They seem just as interested as ever in investment in Senegal.
And despite concerns about the debt of African countries?
I've always had a different take on this discussion over debt. Always having believed as a good financier, I have never seen a problem with debt. My problem has always been with the use of debt. Among other things, we must ensure that debt can create added value and allow the economy, of course, to grow, to be able to serve this debt. As I've often said, the mistake we make is that when you invest in infrastructure, you cannot expect a return on your investment in 1 year, in 2 years, 3 years, or even 4. Infrastructure is long-term. To reap the results of what you sow today, you might have to wait 5, 10 years, maybe more.
Well then, what strategies do you envisage to circumvent the obstacles to financing?
I think we need to look to private sector investments. Obviously, along with the support of development banks, with more flexibility, also commercial banks, bilateral partners. We must also open up in terms of partnerships and mustn't have the feeling that the private sector of any particular country is to the detriment of foreign investors. We can also set up a very specific framework that could see Senegalese and foreign investors able to coexist and allow Senegal, as well as other African countries, to reduce the enormous gap in infrastructure financing.
Mustafa Sow, thank you very much. How to finance post-COVID in Africa. The International Monetary Fund, the IMF, has started discussions on allocating an additional $650 billion in special drawing rights. These special drawing rights, SDRs, are the international reserve asset of the fund. It complements the official reserves of IMF members. If increased, it could help channel financial resources from richer countries to vulnerable and low-income ones. Who would have thought that finance would one day take any interest in biodiversity? Well, the fate of some 5,500 African black rhinos did not leave the World Bank indifferent. It will soon be launching a bond whose return on investment will be determined by the growth of the black rhino population of 2 South African reserves. The amounts involved are $65 million, and if the bond is successful, it could be extended to Kenya and other animal species. Since its creation in 1963, it has played an increasing role in the economic and social development of the continent. I'm of course talking about the AIPO, the African Organization of Intellectual Property. It is the institution that guarantees the protection of African inventions and therefore of investments and technology transfers from the continent. A capital role as discovered by Edmond Letsini, a young Cameroonian engineer whom we have followed in this report. Take a look.
Edmond Letsini is a professional inventor. He lives in the relative tranquility of the outskirts of Yaoundé, the Cameroonian capital. A qualified electrical engineer, he's spent the past 15 years searching for new ideas. His most recent invention is a water filter adapted to African requirements.
Three of my cousins caught amoebic dysentery at a time when we were using traditional fillers with 2 compartments. That inspired me to devise these filters, based on the activated carbon our grandmothers gave us when we were little.
Activated carbon already has medical applications, but it also works wonders filtering amoeba and bacteria, unlike standard, cheap filters. At $4 each, these filters would be within the budget of most Africans. And the real challenge is making them affordable. According to the World Health Organization, waterborne diseases kill 30 million people a year. It has taken 6 years, development and investment, and although his invention is now in its laboratory study phase, Edmond has already applied for a patent at OAPI, the African Intellectual Property Organization. OAPI was founded over 40 years ago to protect patents, brands, and industrial designs. It now has 17 member states.
Et protéger son invention, ça veut dire tout simplement
protecting your invention means taking 2 approaches. You avoid your invention being exploited abusively by a third party, and you make it profitable by exploiting it yourself or by licensing a third party to use it.
Pas de système de contrat de licence avec les tiers.
I came to the OAPI to protect my invention with a patent, so I could market it. I paid $48 because my country is an OAPI member, which qualifies me for a grant to patent my invention.
The invention's suitability needs to be established before a patent can be granted. During this phase of the process, OAP studies the specific characteristics of the invention, as well as examining archives to make sure the same invention has not already been patented in the past. The organization also provides advice and carries out studies for clients in member states where it is represented. Alpha Cissé is a Malian inventor living in Bamako. He has received several awards, for his voting machine.
In Mali, we have a liaison structure to advise us. So we went there to get the information we needed to satisfy the conditions for patent approval.
Once the patent has been granted, the invention is protected in the 17 member nations. Many foreign companies have contacted the organization to protect their inventions and brands. Unfortunately, African companies seem less aware of the need to protect intellectual copyright.
Très souvent, à 80%, ils découvrent la propriété intellectuelle dans le cadre d'un contentieux, dans le cadre d'une contrefaçon.
In 80% of cases, they discover intellectual copyright when there is a dispute over counterfeit goods.
Pour les sortir d'affaires. Donc, c'est pas de manière préventive qu'ils se préoccupent.
Then and only then do they wonder what to do and how to do it. So it's not preventative, it's to solve a problem.
Qu'ils viendront, qui se préoccuperont de la propriété intellectuelle.
Politicians seem equally unaware of the issues at stake.
Governments are not sufficiently aware of the benefits of intellectual copyright, which explains why intellectual copyright is still, in terms of reputation and exploitation, a poor cousin in the context of OAPI.
Edmund knows full well that even when his patent has been approved, he won't immediately reap the rewards of his efforts. OAPI patents only provide limited protection internationally and are not a guarantee of commercial success. Edmund is due to meet representatives from the subsidiary of a foreign investment company. If he manages to convince them that his invention has investment potential, his filter could soon be another African-made and mass-produced item.
Well, it's now time to reward our loyal viewers of Business Africa. It's up to you to answer to the following questions. If you're drawn among those who have given the correct answers, you will win $150. This is game number 548, so listen carefully to the two questions that follow, and good luck. First question, how many visitors does the Douala Grand Mall welcomes per day? 10,000, 10,500 or 15,000? Second question, what's an appâtâmes or marquee in Togo? A hotel, a tent, a vehicle? You know the answers. You can participate now by going to our website africaonair.com, answer the questions, fill out your form, and good luck. And, of course, don't forget to include your contact details, name, address, telephone, email, and the number of the game you are entering with the answers, of course. This game, for example, is game number 548. The winner will receive $150 as our winner this week. Congratulations! You gave the correct answers to our game number 544. Here are the details. First question, how many cattle were affected by the 2008 foot and mouth disease outbreak in Africa? Answer, 8 million. Second question, in which country does Agnes Jacob Molel live? The answer is Tanzania. Well, that's it. Business Africa is over for today. I'll see you next week, same time, same channel, for a new edition of Initiative Africa. We'll meet Captain Frederic Barbe again, commander of the French surveillance frigate Nivose, for the second part of his interview. He talked to me about his mission in the Indian Ocean. In the meantime, you can of course watch this program again on our website africaonair.com, as well as on all our social media channels. Feel free to share, like and comment using the hashtag Business Africa TV show. Take care of yourselves and see you next week. Goodbye.